Don't look now, but it's that time of year again where NFL teams try to improve their rosters to make a late season run. The trade deadline has come and go. Some teams got better, some teams got worse, and some teams, they left you scratching your head wondering, well, what the hell are they even doing? Because they did that sure to me. We're going to talk about that, and we're also going to talk about some of these head coaches that are on the hot seat or, well, they already got ejectocito. And then we're also going to talk about our NFL previews. But first, I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me today is none other than Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
And also, once again, Thaddeus Lloyd.
Heyo.
Ed, I really like you slapping the bass over there, on our intro there. Ed likes slapping the bass, but But we had a lot going down on this trade deadline that passed. I don't know if you guys paid much attention to it. I sure did, because I knew my team was probably going to be heavily invested in it because we had a lot of positions that needed to be stronger, add some more depth. So we were definitely hunters, and we did pick up some key pickups. But the rest of the NFL, there was a lot going on, and there was already stuff going on weeks ago, as we saw. Well, one of the first big winners of the trade deadline was Davante Adams. Davante Adams, as a player, was a winner, in my opinion, although the Jets aren't looking too hot right now, but he needed that change of scenery. He thought it would be for the good. Maybe not, but it was a big deal because it did reunite him with his QB1, Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers got his guy. He got his guy, and that seemed to be a big deal. That was something that GM Rodgers drew up himself, that he wanted his guy to be there, and it was a big deal to get that. And Ed, you being a Packers fan and all, you know just how big a move like this is. Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in the NFL when healthy. Aaron Rodgers, we know what he could do. So just how big of a deal was this?
This was the type of deal that the Jets believed could turn the corner for that offense, because it gave Aaron Rodgers another body that he's more comfortable with, because the friction between him and Garrett Wilson was palpable. So having a number one receiver that he is easy with, he can understand, he knows what to expect from him, and the wide receiver knows what to expect from the QB. That is something that is paramount when we're talking about the timing of NFL offenses going right now. And I think we can all agree that when these two were in Green Bay together, there was not very many duos that were more dangerous than these two being on the same field.
Yeah, and I talk about a change of scenery, and normally this would be a pretty big deal because of a change of scenery going to the Jets. Well, the Jets aren't really where they wanted to be. Shoot, the AFC East, the Bills are running away with this. They have a chance to pretty much clinch the division in a couple games because that's how bad the AFC East is this year. But speaking of the Bills, Thaddeus, Amari Cooper, that was a big change of scenery going from Cleveland, which is such a right now bad franchise, going to the Bills where they needed a receiver. This was as big as they come, in my opinion, because the change of scenery was much needed for him.
Yeah, I would also agree with that. It was a big trade. The Bills got essentially kind of their Stephon Diggs replacement, but no. So it was good for them to get an alpha receiver kind of. Amari Cooper isn't exactly the same player he was like even just 2 years ago, but he's still a pretty good receiver in his own right. So this was a good move for the Bills. The one who's profiting most off of this though is Khalil Shakir. Actually, Shakir, now the attention's been taken away from him, and now it's been going to um, Amari Cooper, and so Khalil Shakir is actually the one who's benefited the most out of this, and he's a good young receiver for Josh Allen right now, and it looks like their receiving core is pretty complete right now.
Yeah, and not to mention Keon Coleman. It will also definitely benefit from this. A young player like him as well will. Both of them will benefit from learning from a veteran like Amari. Ed.
Well, I was going to say, well, I guess we could all say everybody is the biggest winner about Amari Cooper coming to Buffalo, because I was going to say the tight ends.
Yeah.
Because the tight ends really have been the cog of the offense, just getting them down the field between Dawson Knox and Kincaid. They have been the receiving core for Josh Allen. So everything's been middle of the field. It's been tough for Josh Allen to get anything outside the numbers because they all know it's going to be Shakir or it's going to be Keon Coleman, who, as a rookie, he's a phenomenal athlete. He doesn't know how to be an NFL number one receiver, which is what they drafted him to be. So having Amari Cooper there helps that across the board, not just in the wide receiver room, not just in the tight end room, but as an entire offensive piece. That just changes the dynamic of what Josh Allen is looking at.
Yeah, it really does. And they have two incredible tight ends that have pretty much been wide receiver ones for them. And now this opens it up, it spreads it out, takes off the pressure, and it's just going to help that offense become more and more elite because they are going to need to be up to par, especially when it comes to the playoffs, playing the likes of Kansas City and Baltimore. Your offense needs to be 100% an A game. So that helps them out. If you aren't seeing a trend here, you're going to see it now. DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. Wide receivers in general were big winners this trade deadline. This is just a couple of them, but these were three of the biggest because DeAndre Hopkins, we know what he has done in his career as a receiver, but now he's going to be playing for the best quarterback he'll ever have, and that is such a upgrade for him. Granted, I mean, Mason Rudolph was so close to being that Patrick Mahomes to him, but Patrick Mahomes, now another weapon. I don't know how they continue to always do it. I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the NFL. I say that time is a little bit past him, but he is still elite. So this was great for DeAndre Hopkins because the Titans were clearly going nowhere. He's going to a team that's undefeated, that is playoff bound, destined for sure, and he may finally have a chance to win a Super Bowl ring. At this rate, I don't know really who's going to stop the Chiefs. So DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, another great pickup there, and the wide receivers, they continue to garnish the looks because here they are now, three big trades right there. You guys want to add anything?
Well, the only thing I would add with DeAndre Hopkins is with the uncertainty behind the wide receiving core of the Chiefs following Rashee Rice not being there. Xavier Worthy, they know what piece he is. He is just this being used as a speed burner while he's learning the NFL style of wide receiving that is totally different from college. So DeAndre Hopkins does provide that veteran presence, which he was kind of unto himself at the other stops since he left Houston. So this actually gives him an opportunity to be a mentor and create some value for himself in that realm, as opposed to just being the phenomenal athlete that never dropped a pass in a season.
Yeah, exactly. And if you didn't notice a trend here with the receivers, you're going to notice a trend now when I bring up Thaddeus Smith traded from the Browns to the Lions, because you are now seeing playoff teams that are just about one piece away and that they needed to fill. And that is exactly what the Lions, the whole NFL knew the Lions needed to fill that void of Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line. Okay. And Aiden Hutchinson is a very, very tough void to fill with how talented he is. But Thaddeus Smith is going to do just fine for them because they already have a great, talented defense. Of course, their offense, we already know, they're moving the needle. And now Thaddeus Smith on that defense is the only thing they needed, and they got it. So the Lions, in my opinion, the Lions look actually to be the best team in the NFL right now. Yes, the Chiefs are undefeated. They are winning games, but the Lions, they're not just winning games. They are dominating games, and they just seem to me, they seem to be the best team in the NFL, and they got that missing puzzle piece, Ed. And I know you hate to see it in the NFC North, but the Lions are going to be the team to beat.
Yes, and I know that the Lions are the team to beat in the NFC North. That's why I picked them against my Packers last week.
Yeah.
But having gone through this trade deadline, they pick up Thaddeus Smith. He was the linebacker that was with the Packers with Preston Smith, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. And they were the Smith brothers. It was sacks galore. It was attacking the quarterback. It was everything until the Packers had to pay them. And they paid one, and Thaddeus Smith got cut out. So what does he do? He tries to smite the Packers by going to the Vikings. Where have we heard that one before?
Yeah.
I mean, I could list off, 4 or 5 names, but
yeah,
we won't dive down that rabbit hole. So after Thaddeus's time in Minnesota, he was able to sign a contract to be opposite Myles Garrett, which, as a defensive attacking linebacker, why wouldn't you want to do that? So with the fall off of the Browns and the Browns needing to clear cap space for Mr. Guaranteed money bags over there, they were more than willing to let Thaddeus Smith go to the Lions, and Thaddeus wants to smite the Packers again by being with a better team, so he thinks, and I agree at this point. So his time in Detroit, this is like a guy on a mission to do something to get back at the Packers for letting him go, because he's carrying that chip on his shoulder. He hasn't really talked about it since he got to Detroit this week, but it's something that he talked openly about when he was in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a chip on his shoulder, and sometimes that can be dangerous, but it could also be a ticking time bomb too. So I think he just needs to focus on football and playoff football, because that is where the Lions are destined to be, is in the playoffs, and the NFC may run through them. But on the other side of the NFC, Thaddeus, this might be one of the biggest trades that happened because of where this player ended up. Adam Schefter had posted that a lot of players were expressing their interest in wanting to play for the Washington Commanders. Never have heard that before, which is crazy. And Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints ended up being traded to Washington, and that also instantly made their team better too, if healthy. How do you feel about this, of players wanting to play for Washington right now? Jaden Daniels is just a rookie, but he's already bringing that swagger that players want to come play for. Is it him, or is it Dan Quinn, or is it good old Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, I think it's not because of them, but it's because of what happened. Dan Snyder is gone. and it has almost cured the franchise, I think. Um, but it is probably the factor of all the success that's happening in Washington right now. You have the Commanders, who are on one of the top teams in the NFC, surprisingly for some, right now. You got Jaden Daniels, probably right now, as of now, going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, doing a phenomenal job. You got Kingsbury, who's scheming up everything right now. You've got Dan Quinn, who looks to learn from his mistakes as the Falcons head coach, and learned a little bit when he was the Cowboys defensive coordinator these past couple years, and it looks like he's turned it around, turned his philosophy around, and he just seems like a much more natural head coach this time around, which is a good sight to see. So it's not terribly surprising that some players want to come join the Commanders, like Marshawn Lattimore, um, who has not been great this year, at least according to the PFF grades, but still is a good addition for this team. The defense was struggling a little bit earlier in the season, but the past month or so, they've actually picked it up fairly amount. And Marshawn, I don't think can hurt this defense, so I think it's a pretty good addition for him. And yeah, this defense might be even better. They might be in the top 10 by the end of the time the season is done.
Yeah, I mean, we already know what their offense can do. Their offense is one of, I want to say, either one or two offense in the NFL right now. So, yes, clearly their defense needed to get better. And, yeah, it's not going to hurt them by getting Marshawn Lattimore. But Marshawn Lattimore, like I said, when healthy, he could be an all-pro type of cornerback. So, that shows a lot that he wants to go up to Washington, wanted to play for them. And it sounds like a lot of other players do. There is a new atmosphere there. I'm glad that you brought it up. Dan Snyder is gone. Dan Quinn is there now. Some coaches are better coordinators. Some are better head coaches. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, is one of those that I think he is a better coordinator. I think the perfect situation is where he's in right now. And I think a little bit of humble pie is what he needed. Went over to Bangkok and then went over to USC, was the quarterback coach. So this is a guy that was a head coach in the NFL, left on vacation, came back, wasn't even an offensive coordinator. He was a quarterbacks coach at USC, happened to have none other than Caleb Williams there as his quarterback. And then now he's offensive coordinator in the NFL and is just in the number one offense in the NFL. So props to him. Props to Dan Quinn for that team right there. They've turned a lot around. Still more season to go. I'm interested to see that NFC East, who finishes on top, them or Philly, because it's looking close right now. But more trades that happen. My Pittsburgh Steelers, I mentioned, they needed depth, and they got just that in Preston Smith on the defensive side of the ball and Mike Williams at the receiver side. These aren't giant pickups. Mike Williams coming from an ACL injury and hasn't really done anything for the Jets this year. Preston Smith is up there in age, but they are, I feel like, great depth pickups, and Mike Williams could be that guy that takes the pressure off of George Pickens as he tries to lament himself as one of the best receivers in the NFL and kind of spread out that offense more. When Mike Williams was healthy, especially last year before he tore his ACL, he was on a tear, so no pun intended. And he was doing great for the Chargers, and then the injury came. So you never know how someone's going to come back from an ACL injury. So I hope that he's a great addition to our team. And Preston Smith, veteran leader there. I know you have TJ Watt and Cam Hayward there, who are the veterans of the Steelers defense. But another guy like him that Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig could look up to, Keanu Benton on the defensive line, is really going to pay wonders for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And they're back at it again. I feel like the Steelers defense, one of the top in the NFL, and Preston Smith is one of those. I'm not saying it's a shiny new pickup, but it is going to help them out even more in defense as the season goes on, because a rare stat for you guys, Preston Smith and both Mike Williams can be the first players in, I want to say it's almost 100 years to play 18 games in a season, because of the bye that happened, they played all their games up until the Steelers bye. Steelers took their bye. Now they could play 18 games. It's going to be very tiring as the year goes on. We have added another game in the NFL, so the players will be more tired. But Ed, I got to ask you, Preston Smith, feel free to give a scouting report here. But yeah,
Preston Smith at this point, I think, is best served on passing downs to come in as a rusher. He's not going to be somebody that you can rely on first and second down against the run. So it makes sense to put him on the other side from TJ for just the ultimate, pin your ears back and let's get after it type of pass rush. NASCAR, if you will. Him leaving the Packers, I think, is more looking down the line in the Packers front office. Paying a free agent twice is not something that the Packers do fundamentally. So it makes sense for them to try and get something for him before he walks out the door.
Yeah, because I want to say I saw a report that he actually did request a trade. So they fulfilled that by trading him to the Steelers. So,
and also the Packers did draft Luke Van Ness last year, who is starting to come into his own in his second season.
Yeah.
So that makes Preston Smith a little more expendable on that defense. And with the new philosophy, it gets somebody that was in the old philosophy out of the way and lets the younger guys just do what they do.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The young have to come in, eventually. It's just kind of the circle of life in the NFL. So out with the old, in with the new, exactly like you said. But those are pretty much the winners of the trade deadline because I think all those teams got what they needed. They filled in those holes that they felt really stood out to them and their chances of making a long postseason run. Now on to the losers and Thaddeus. I love this first one because they were the losers of free agency. They were the losers of the draft. And now they are the losers of the trade deadline. And that is none other than the Dallas Cowboys. Thaddeus, what were they thinking, giving up a 4th-round draft pick?
Well, as we like to say, I don't know what we say. we have no words for it.
Yeah.
It's quite funny because as a Niners fan, we drafted Trey Lance first overall. We gave up multiple picks for him. He played in 4 games for us. Okay. 2 games he got hurt. 1 was a rainy game and 1 was a good game. Okay. That's what happened. And the Cowboys gave up a 4th-round pick for him. And that's a problem for them if you don't realize it, because they actually get a lot of value out of their 4th-round picks. Schultz was a 4th-round pick. Prescott was a 4th-round pick. And I don't know what Jerry was thinking. Nobody knows what Jerry's been thinking the past year because he said all in the offseason. Well, as multiple Cowboy fans and Cowboy haters have said alike, all in my butt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of baffling what's been going on. If you want to look at like more of a psychological point from it, it's because Jerry is the owner and manager, and he's got his fingers in everything. And he was very successful in the 90s, but that formula which worked for him back then is not working now. So, and as you get older, you tend to be more set in your ways.
Mm-hmm.
Would Stephen Jones be able to turn this around? I don't know. But we do know for a fact Jerry is just way too controlling and way too, impervious for this team right now. And it's turning into a disaster this year. You're not having a great record, then Dak Prescott gets hurt. Like, okay, well, it's Cooper Rush time. Yeah, it looks like the season might be over for the Cowboys.
Well, yeah, I think that it's obvious that the Cowboys season is over, but I told you guys I'd ask this questions, and I want the audience to also give their input right now as I ask this in the comments. Who is the most disappointing team this year? The New York Jets or the Dallas Cowboys? Because both these teams were all about being all in. All right, whether it was the ayahuasca trips for Aaron Rodgers, he was all in. Jerry Jones with writing the checks for $2, he was all in. Okay, and now these teams are not likely to make the playoffs, and it just seems like this season was such a wash. So, Ed, I'll let you start. Who's been the most disappointing team out of the two?
Oh, can we just throw the quarter in the ground and, instead of flipping a quarter, just bury the quarter and just call it a day? Because both of these teams are buried under the drama that has been created by the whole situation. So with the Dallas Cowboys, when your starting quarterback is mouthing the words "we effing suck" on the sideline, and it is caught by cameras, because nothing is sacred on the sideline of the NFL at this point, you're in bad shape. But Jerry always thinks that he's got a plan that's going to make them competitive and make them the Cowboys, and he just doesn't get it, man. He doesn't, because he thinks it's the 90s when he could buy every player and overpay for every player to stay and play for him, which that was before the salary cap. Mm-hmm. There's a salary cap now. You can't do that anymore. And when 37% of your salary cap is getting MRIs on Monday morning, that is not a good recipe for success at any stage of an NFL season.
Not at all. Not at all. And that injury doesn't seem to be the best for Dak. I mean, I just saw a report earlier about that hamstring was pulled so much it came off the bone. So that is not good, okay, for Dak Prescott. But Thaddeus, question also, same with you. Who's been more of a disappointment so far?
Well, I actually did have something for this. The Cowboys have been a major disappointment, and so have the Jets. But it's obviously more on the Cowboys, because the Jets have not made the playoffs in 20, 25 years. And it's only natural for, or no, they haven't made it in like 15 years. Sorry.
Yeah.
I remember they beat the Chargers. But yeah, it's just the Cowboys have just been so disappointing. It's like you have this really talented team, but then it's really top heavy, and you're only playing those top players, and you aren't drafting particularly well. You hit on your first rounders, but that's really much it. And it's just been really disappointing. I was going to say, kind of reminded me when Ed was saying, was I feel like Saban got out of college football right as the NIL thing was coming around. You got all the transfers and stuff. I don't know. This is what I heard. I don't know if it would have worked out if he was still coaching during the NIL and stuff like that, because it's a new era of football. Should Jerry have just retired when we have more of the NFL free agency and stuff like that going around? Who knows? But the Cowboys have just been a major disappointment, and it's not even close.
Yeah. I mean, the playoffs, the expectations there, and now where they're at, it's probably safe to say that they've been the biggest disappointment. But Ed, they aren't the only losers. Browns fans, or you can even say the Browns organization, but we'll say Browns fans.
We know the Browns organization is a two-flusher, if you will, because they take chances on players that they shouldn't take chances on, and then overpaid them. And when it doesn't work out, guess who's left holding the bag? The organization that took those chances, and they can't afford to have those players work through everything because they have so much money tied up in Deshaun Watson right now. They had to make these trade deadline deals to get money off the books. So who are they going to have, who are they going to have at linebacker next year? Is it somebody that's a junior in college that they're going to draft in the 6th round? Because that's all they can afford at this point. This has been a train that we have all seen coming where the Browns were going to get to a point where they are going to have an overpaid quarterback and nobody else on this team. So, in turn, the fans that are following this team, they are some of the best fans in football because they are there no matter what. And believe me, no matter what, because that's been a trash organization since they came back from the whole resurrection thing.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for Browns fans. I think they got the short end of this, and they're going to continue to have the short end of this until that Deshaun Watson contract comes due and they can get it off the books and have another resurrection. Because how many quarterbacks has it been since they came back? I want to say it's been 28 or so. So it's, to me, Browns fans, I feel for you.
Yeah, they're going to have to start busting out the brown paper bags again because it's getting that bad up there. But I want to add another team to this list of losers, and this is no bias here or anything, but I'm gonna say the Cincinnati Bengals. There was a report a couple days ago before the trade deadline about T. Higgins being traded, and Bengals said, "We will not be trading T. Higgins. We will be active because we still feel we have a chance this year." Okay. Trade deadline came. They made one trade. They picked up Khalil Herbert, a third string running back from the Bears, because the Bengals lost one of their running backs for the year. That's it. I get you got Joe Burrow at quarterback, you got Jamar Chase at receiver, and I know it's easier said than done to admit defeat. And I'm not saying the Bengals, I'm not saying they're horrible by no means, but I feel like they could have gotten draft picks for T. Higgins because it's pretty much a 1-year rental. You know, he signed the franchise tag. He already told you, I'm out after this year. You might as well have just gotten draft picks for him, and had some other team eat the rest of his contract because he's hurt, pretty much. So, to me, I feel like they're a loser because they made it clear that they wanted to be more competitive. They still had a chance at this year, and they didn't really do anything. And then on the other hand, the Saints. The Saints. They started out pretty decent this year. They put the whooping on the Cowboys, which really doesn't mean much now. And they traded away Marshawn Lattimore. And on top of that, well, they fired their head coach, which we're also going to talk about. So the Saints have been a big loser. Now maybe they're thinking, we're going to rebuild. We're going to start from scratch because we fired our head coach. We got rid of our all-pro cornerback. So, but still, I'd have to say that they're, one of the losers because it took them this long to realize that, Ed. It took them how long to realize Dennis Allen was not the right guy for the job?
Enough for Sean Payton to have 3 or 4 seasons just kicking back, drinking Mai Tais, and be back with the team for 2 years before they finally said enough is enough. But interestingly enough, the Saints turn around and they sign Alvin Kamara to a long-term deal, which is odd in my mind because of so many teams that are not willing to put long-term deals together for a running back that's been in the league more than 5 years. So that, I think, was kind of an odd move on top of everything else going around in the Saints organization. So I'm interested to see what they do coming up to address the holes in the roster if Alvin Kamara truly is going to be the focal point of your roster.
Yeah, because they are going to have to clarify pretty much where they want to build around and everything. And I still feel like they don't know really what direction they're going to be heading in. I will say the one thing that they got right is firing Dennis Allen. That's a great direction because he was getting you nowhere. So you're going to have to find that next guy, whether it be their interim coach or someone else on the market, because now that we've seen some coaches really paying off from last year's pretty much free agency, where does that go from there? And keep in mind, Mike Vrabel still needs a job. I'm not saying he's going to be the guy for the Saints, but I still think Mike Vrabel's a good head coach, and maybe some team will finally hire him. But bad coaches this year seems to kind of be an epidemic in the NFL. Thaddeus, although their record may indicate things, Nick Sirianni hasn't really been doing the best as a head coach. Mike McCarthy, for sure. What's going on, you think?
Well, every season we have a couple head coaches who are fired like midway or at the beginning or the end of the season. We've always had, I think, like 2 or 3 at least every year. We had that happen with who did that happen actually with?
Brandon Staley with the Chargers last year.
Yeah, Brandon Staley last year. The Panthers have fired multiple head coaches the past couple of years. I think they've had 5 head coaches in 3 years. It's crazy. So yeah, there's always going to be a couple of impatient owners. And someone brought this up, and I thought it was a very good point, is so you know how we're at least the past 5 years we're extra hard on rookie quarterbacks. Like, well, that's unfair. Why can't we develop these quarterbacks? Indianapolis is a good example. Why can't we just have Anthony Richardson play all our games and just have him develop for a couple of years, right? Well, I actually thought it was a good decision to start Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson because the team is in a win now kind of mode. Like the team is still in it for a playoff berth. And what you have is, unlike previous years where you could say like, oh, let's just develop the QB for 3 years. Well, now you have owners who are getting more impatient because these windows are just closing so fast on you. You don't know how long you're going to have your good players for. And that's putting pressure on the head coach to say, we got to win now. We got to put our best quarterback currently available right now into the lineup instead of actually developing our players, for future. So it's a very tough proposition for a lot of coaches, and ultimately some of them do get fired for it. Now, the coaches that have been fired this year, like Dennis Allen, that was just a bad situation. Taking over for Sean Payton has not really proven anything. The defenses have been sort of elite while they were under him, but that's pretty much been it. Oh, that's what I was thinking of, Robert Saleh, who got fired earlier this year. But it's just like, man, these owners are just so impatient with how they're running things, and it's speeding up the NFL and just making it crazy. Now we know the NFL it's entertainment, it's sports and entertainment in one package, but it's speeding up. It's unnecessarily speeding up things where they don't need to be sped up.
Yeah, I would agree there. I would agree there. Before we talk about these games to come this week, preview them, Thaddeus, care to go over our records right now on our picks?
Yeah, so we all had winning records last week. It seemed like a pretty easy week. Ed went 5-0 for like the second time this year, I think. Yeah, second time. And then both Matt and I went 4-1. The only game he got the Browns. He picked the Browns last week, and I picked the Packers last week. So those are the only ones. That puts Matt's record at 21-24. I'm second at 25-20, and Ed is 33-12.
Ed is running away with this,
Yeah,
man.
Ed is running away, unfortunately. It's
Mr.
going to make
Forrest Gump.
yeah.
Yep. I still try to give myself a chance. All starts with one game, but I've got quite a lead to catch with Ed. But let's go ahead and talk about the first game this week. And this is Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. It's a division game. Doesn't get any better than division games. You got the Cincinnati Bengals and Baltimore Ravens. And I think what stands out most to me in this game is you get the Bengals that are 3-1 on the road. Ravens are 3-1 at home. Yet the Bengals are 4-5 this year, and the Ravens are 6-3. But this is a pivotal game because the Bengals come away with this one, brings them to a 500 record at 5-5. The Ravens, on the other hand, dropped to 6-4, and they are a game behind as of right now of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That changes a lot because of the top of the division, but the Bengals are only one game away from tying the Ravens in the division. Granted, this will be the second time they play each other this year, which is so crazy to think how early in a season they've already played twice. But the Bengals gave the Ravens quite a run the last time they played. They had the lead by 10 points with about 4 minutes left in the game. Ultimately, MVP Lamar Jackson really showed out, tied the game, went to overtime, won the game. Actually, the Bengals had a chance to win the game after Lamar fumbled it in overtime and missed the game-winning field goal. So they lost in heartbreaking fashion. But the Ravens, when they're playing some of their best football, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Bengals, I think the Bengals can click things with Joe Burrow if he's healthy, Jamar Chase. They do still have a great team, but Ravens at home here, it's going to be tough to really defeat them at home. I'm going to have to pick Baltimore in this game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think these are going to be two offenses that are just going to just show out over and over again this week. I'm going to go 35-28 Baltimore in this game. Thaddeus.
Yeah, the first matchup this year was also like an extreme fireworks situation. Ravens ended up winning, I think, 38-35. It was crazy. I think this one's going to be even more crazy. I'm going to have the Ravens also winning this one 42-40. I just think whatever the over is, go over. Just take it over. It's got to be crazy. The Bengals are going to really need this win in order to even have a chance to get to the playoffs because they started 1-4 and only 3 teams the past 25 years have made it to the playoffs after a 1-4 start. So they really need this win. The Ravens, like you said, though, they need to catch up to the Steelers and or stay with them as far as the division goes. So I just think the Ravens are just a slightly better team. Lamar Jackson, MVP kind of season, better than last year. It was kind of a fluky MVP last year, but this year is looking way better with Derrick Henry with him back there. So that's why I think of this game. Yeah,
Ed.
So the Ravens' run game is historic at this point. They are averaging 5.9 yards a carry, which is the highest in NFL history over a season. So that has then opened up their pass game. So they are number 1 in yards per pass as well. Lamar Jackson getting the ball down the field when those safeties come up to stop the freight train that is Derrick Henry. And Lamar is just able to get over the top of them. But you know who has the worst yards per game against the pass in the NFL? It is the Baltimore Ravens. And when you get Joe Burrow and that wide receiving core up for a game, particularly underneath the lights, prime time, and knowing that they went toe-to-toe with them just a few weeks ago, I'm taking the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow is going to bring that moxie and get them over the hump and really bring out the best of his offense against the Ravens defense. And getting off, because there are a lot of similarities as far as third down conversions. They're pretty close. It's who can get off which defense can get off the field first and who can sustain drives. But also, like I said, it's the X factor of Joe Burrow and that wide receiving core against the Ravens secondary, which has been suspect. So I'm taking the Bengals, and I'm going to take them 37-31.
Yeah, so regardless, I think the over's hitting. But yeah, this could be one of those games that the Bengals can pull off this victory. I could see that happening. So it is kind of a toss up on who can win, but I'm going with Baltimore here. I know they picked up Tre'Davious White at the trade deadline. It's not a big pick, but does give them some good depth there at cornerback with Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins too. So, but they need everything they could get to stop the pass nowadays. On to the next game. That's the Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. And gosh, the poor Broncos, they had a stretch of 2 good games. I know they were against bottom feeder type of teams right now with Carolina and the Saints, but they were starting to click. They were starting to look pretty good, especially on offense. Bo Nix was looking good. And then they ran into the Ravens. And then now they run into the Chiefs. And I feel bad for them because right when they thought that they had things going good, they are facing off against 2 of the best teams in the AFC right now. This one's going to be a quick and easy one here. Chiefs are at home. They are undefeated. Arrowhead is a very tough environment to play. And the Chiefs right now are a tough team to play because they know how to pull out a victory. They may be close games, but they know how to pull it out when it matters. And I'm going to go with them here. I'm going to go 28-14 Kansas City. Ed?
I said, when have I been proven wrong about the Chiefs?
Not yet.
I have yet to be proven wrong. So I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm taking the under 41.5. That's really all that needs to be said about this particular one, in my opinion. Can the Broncos make it interesting? Yes, because the Chiefs make every game interesting, unnecessarily for some reason. So there you go. It is going to be the Chiefs winning this divisional matchup at home. GEHA. Yes, I call it Arrowhead as well.
Yeah.
And what I would be more interested to see is not so much Bo Nix winning this game, but seeing how developed he is to go against a defensive front like what the Chiefs are going to bring at him. To me, it's not so much a let's see if the Broncos can win this. It's let's see how far they've come. Let's see how far they've come to play toe-to-toe with a team like Kansas City at this point.
Yeah. Thaddeus?
Yeah, it's going to be a clean sweep here. Yeah, I'm also going to take the Chiefs, although to make it close, like every single Chiefs game has been, like Ed, you can take the under. It's going to be a really low-scoring game. The Broncos defense got absolutely smashed by the Ravens, but we know the Ravens offense is absolutely insane. And Bo Nix is very spotty. I expect the Broncos defense to have a bounce back because they are a top 5 unit and they just got bullied by the Ravens. And that happens. It happened to the Lions last year. So I do expect the Broncos to have a bounce back, but I just cannot trust Bo Nix to overcome that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense got a little bit hammered Monday night against the Bucs, but the Bucs is also I'd say a top tier offense, even without Godwin and Mike Evans, which was pretty impressive by Baker Mayfield, which I thought. But both defenses are really, really good. And Patrick Mahomes always every single game this season. They're just going to eke out that win barely. So I got the Chiefs in this one. Give me 17-10.
I'm starting to think they're just messing with us. Like, this is such a big troll job because Mahomes will be playing some of his worst football, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we need a game-winning drive," and he'll play his best football and win the game.
Well, one of my favorite things that I'm seeing over the different platforms is the compilations now of questionable referee calls that go in the Chiefs' favor or don't get called at all for each of the games, because it seems like the Chiefs, yes, they're winning every game close, but there seems to be some kind of refereeing controversy in every game as well. So there's that. I'm not saying that there is a bias by the referees. I'm just saying there are points in every game. They just seem to get highlighted because it is Patrick Mahomes and the back-to-back Super Bowl winning Chiefs.
You know, really quick on a side note, it's funny. So I live in the city of Cincinnati. I'm a Steelers fan, and normally that is a big no-no. But I could get away being a Steelers fan in Cincinnati because if you just dare to say the name Chiefs here, it people start throwing up in their mouth. They hate the Chiefs more than they hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Cleveland Browns. It's just so funny to me because the reactions of the fans here, when you say the Chiefs, they go down everything. They start swinging. It's Patrick Mahomes, Kermit the Frog, the refs love them, everything, you name it. And it's like, and then I'll be like, remember guys, I'm a Steelers fan. That's fine. So it's funny being in Cincinnati now. But yeah, the Chiefs are squeaking out wins. I saw someone post online the other day, is this the worst team to start out at like 8-0 in a season? And someone said, do you not remember the 2020 Steelers? I know that's a dig at me, but you know, I had to bring that up. And the thing that's scary to me is, well, what happens when they actually start playing good football? Because they really aren't right now, and they're undefeated. So let that simmer in, because the best has yet to come from them. We know that. It's the Chiefs. It's Mahomes. So let that simmer. Next game is Thaddeus' very own San Francisco 49ers, the Tampa Bay Bucks. I was impressed with the Bucks because of their injuries. They played a very good game against the Chiefs. And even at the end, Baker Mayfield led them down to a game-tying touchdown. I know that the 2-point conversion or lack thereof was very controversial, but they pulled, for the most part, most of the stops they needed to. I was impressed with them against the defending Super Bowl champs. And they're at home this game against the Niners. These are both games that these teams need to win. Both of these teams need this. I am interested to hear if McCaffrey's going to be playing Thaddeus. Do you have any update on that?
Yeah, he's going to be. I think he just got in his full practice today, so he's going to be starting on Sunday.
Which I know with Jordan Mason, I mean they're needing that running presence again, but how is his snap count going to be? Because I think that does play a lot of factors in this game. You don't want to rush him back into something coming off injury. So I don't know what's going to happen there with Christian McCaffrey, but something in my gut's telling me to go with Tampa Bay here just because of how they looked last week against Kansas City. And this Niners team is so sporadic. You don't know which Niners team's really going to show up. They're 4-4 in the year. Brock Purdy hasn't looked his best, but they've dealt with a lot of injuries. So is Tampa. It's going to be the battle of the urgent care room at this point with both these teams. But the Niners should win this game, but I'm going to go with Tampa at home. It's going to be 22-17 Tampa. Ed.
Well, there is a particular thing that Baker Mayfield has done on occasion, especially when he doesn't have his main wide receivers there to bail him out, and that's throw some interceptions. He will throw it off the cuff a couple of times. And guess who's number 2 in the league in interceptions per game? That would be the San Francisco 49ers. So this looks to me like something that is just headed for disaster for Tampa Bay, with not having those top end receivers. Yes, the Buccaneers were impressive on Monday night against the Chiefs, but I have a hard time taking a road team on Monday night to go play further away from their home the next weekend and cover what they need to cover. So those are some 2 big factors I'm taking San Francisco for. It isn't because Christian McCaffrey's coming back. It isn't necessarily that I don't know which San Francisco team is going to show up. It's, can Tampa Bay handle the jet lag from the traveling and the lack of explosive players on offense that is changing their mindset from what they had going into the season. So I'm taking San Francisco. I think this could get ugly real quick. I'm taking this at 33-13.
All right, Thaddeus.
Those are some good points, Ed, and I would agree with you. And I will add one more point to that. The Niners and Kyle Shanahan are really good off a bye. And remember what happened last year. Now, it's not the exact same team as last year. It's a little bit weakened. We do have some injuries. But last year, off the bye, they blew out what was a one-loss Jags team last year. And look what's happened to the Jags since. Total collapse. That was the beginning of their downfall, was losing to the 49ers after they came off their bye last year. So I'm going to agree with Ed. I got the Niners in another blowout game. Hopefully I don't jinx them like I've done a couple times this season, but
wait, can I change my pick now?
But you know me, I'm going for the homer. I'm going for my team, but I do think it's pretty rational. The Niners total numbers, they're a middle of the team defense. However, their passing defense is top 3 in most statistical categories in the NFL. And this is with starting a bunch of younger players with Mustafa, Brown. We got those young safeties. This is despite that. So we got some really good draft value out of those players. And I'm gonna say it's gonna be a blowout. I'm gonna go 28-7. I just think this 49ers offense is just it's been too dominant as far as stats go. Brock Purdy's thrown a couple interceptions this year. They've had a couple turnovers. The defense hasn't been great. It's not been as great as last year, but we're getting Christian McCaffrey back. I do think they're going to split the load fairly between Mason and McCaffrey, I think, to ease McCaffrey back into actual NFL physicality again. But yeah, I have the Niners in this one.
Okay. Next game, and I'm not sure right now at this moment. I could be wrong, but this is the Steelers and Commanders, where I think should be early morning game of the week. I feel like it should be because these are two. No, it is not, Ed.
It's a noon game. The early morning game is going to be the game in Germany, which is is it Giants and
it's the Giants and Panthers. That's just brutal, but that's going to be
it's the final punishment for World War II.
Yeah, that's going to be the early one for sure. But I mean, this is the 1:00 slate Eastern time. It's on CBS. I'll be interested to see if it's a Jim Nantz, Tony Romo game. But this is a top tier matchup. This is the 6-2 Pittsburgh Steelers, 7-2 Washington Commanders. Commanders undefeated at home. We just talked about earlier how great this team has been. Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn. It's just been phenomenal how the Commanders have been playing. Steelers, on the other hand, you call them a lucky 6-2, but now that Russell Wilson is our quarterback, you've seen more of a spark in the offense. Steelers are coming off a bye, well rested. They're getting some players back, it sounds like, some key defensive players and offensive players too. I feel like this may actually be the game where we see the best version of the Steelers so far this year. I'm going to do something that I haven't done so far in this show. We've had 2 Steeler games. I don't think I've picked the Steelers once. I'm going to pick them this game, actually. Our last game before the bye, we were looking great on offense, but we were not scoring touchdowns. We were driving the ball down in the red zone, and we were kicking field goals. I think that throughout the bye week, they really honed in on that, and I think that they're going to really perfect that and get touchdowns in the red zone. I just seen a lot of improvement on offense and defense. The Steelers are always stout on defense. This may be one of the top defenses Jaden Daniels sees all year. I hope that we could stop running quarterback. There's times in the past where we haven't done so well with that, but I'm having hope this game. I think Washington, with them being the number one offense, is going to score points, but I think ultimately the Steelers are going to score more, and they're going to pick up the win on the road 31-21. TJ Watt, I'm expecting 2 sacks this game, my friend. Thaddeus.
This is an interesting matchup. We got 2 different cultures, but we got one established culture and we got one building culture. As we alluded to earlier in the show, this is probably top 3 most intriguing matchups for me this week. I think it's going to be great. Although you have normal Steelers football, which is dragging down your opponent to their level and making it just a dirty, awful game. That Giants game was absolute hilarity. But I'm also going to go with you. I'm going to take the Steelers with this one. You had the Commanders have lost to the Ravens. Not a great defense, but the Ravens offense was too better, and they should have probably lost to the Bears, who have a really good defense. But it was just a fluke Hail Mary play, Stevenson being an idiot, and allowed them to have that win. So the people forget that the Commanders struggled like 3.5 quarters of that game against that Bears defense, and I'm not quite sure, but the Steelers defense might be even better than that. And coming off a bye, like you said, I think it should be very good pickings for the Steelers defense. So and I think Russell Wilson, he's pretty comfortable in this offense. So I'm going to be taking the Steelers in this one 20-10.
Well. You're taking the Steelers, huh? Okay.
So was Ed.
Well, this interestingly enough might be the most intriguing game of the weekend, but it will most probably be the fastest game played this weekend because both teams are in the top 5 in number of carries per game. So you got that clock just running the entire game. And even when Washington has pass plays called, there's a good chance it's a run play by the end of it. So that in and of itself, that's going to tire out this Pittsburgh defense. I think it is going to be a lot closer than what is being listed right now, which it's a field goal difference according to the lines. And believe it or not, Washington is favored, and I'm going to go with the favor. I'm going with Washington. It's at home. You've got the culture in which players want to play for this team, and there's just something about Russell Wilson that I don't necessarily trust. Once the play breaks down at this point in his career, he doesn't have those same wide receivers that he had in Seattle. He doesn't have that feel for that offense just yet. But Jaden Daniels, he can carry a team by himself with just his athleticism alone. And I think that's going to be the difference in this. There's going to be a play made in which he escapes TJ Watt and makes a play that just breaks the back of the Steelers. So I've got Washington winning this one 20-17.
Yeah, I mean, creating those extra plays is very key in the NFL, and he's done quite that already in his young career. So it could very well happen.
And one more point: if I asked you which team had more sacks going into this game, which one would you say?
Normally, you'd say the Steelers, but be wrong.
It is the Washington Commanders
Yeah.
by 4 sacks so far. 4 more. Washington has 23 sacks on the year going into this game. Pittsburgh has 19. So both of these teams can get after the quarterback. Pittsburgh just has a few less, and Russell Wilson isn't as mobile as he used to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely a good point there. So, last but not least, Sunday Night Football, and the NFL matchmakers are at it once again, and this is a good thing. This is the Detroit Lions going in against the Houston Texans. Lions are 4-0 on the road. Texans are 4-0 at home. One team is going to come out with an and 1 after this game. And who's it going to be? I'm going to tell you right off the bat who I think it's going to be. I think the Texans are going to be 4-1 at home after this game. Like I said earlier, I think the Lions are one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL right now, playing the best football. And they are consistent. If you're looking for a word that's synonymous with the Lions right now, it is consistent. They are consistent on offense. They are consistent on defense, and they are very well disciplined. Houston's got a great team, but we have seen inconsistency on their side of the ball. Whereas Detroit, we have not seen that. And I've got a lot of faith in them going into this game, even though it's on the road. Just the Lions just seem to be clicking on all cylinders. Houston, on the other hand, I know they have Stephon Diggs out for the year, which is a tough blow. It's tough to see. It's his first year there. No one likes seeing that. They do have a lot of other great playmakers. I mean, Joe Mixon, he's actually been, it seems like, playing some of his best ball down in Houston, minus his injuries there. So they have playmakers there, and C.J. Stroud is a phenomenal quarterback. But we haven't seen the C.J. Stroud that we saw last year. You call it a sophomore slump, but his team's still 6-3. So call it whatever you want. His team's still winning. But going into this game, I'm going to have Detroit winning this on the road. We're going to go 28-21 Detroit. Ed.
So the last time that Jared Goff missed a throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown was September 22nd. Here we are, we're at November 7th. That is a ridiculous amount of time to not miss the same receiver. I don't care what level of football you're playing, let alone the NFL. So I'm definitely impressed with what Jared Goff has been doing, but I'm also very impressed with what the defensive line for the Houston Texans have been doing. They have 29 sacks on the season. They are getting after it and causing just as much havoc on the back end as what the Detroit Lions are. So I think that keeps them closer in this game than what some people might think. Houston, they still have Nico Collins. You've got Tank Dell. You've got Joe Mixon, as you mentioned before. Not to mention, you still have Will Anderson on the other side, just doing his thing. So there's a reason why this is a Sunday night game. There's a lot of young stars that are going to be on the field, and I do think that the Texans put up a valiant effort, but Detroit is just too much between whatever Sonic the Hedgehog names that they've given the running backs, Gibbs and for Detroit. My brain just shut off for a second. So I'm taking Detroit. I'm going to take it as a 2-point spread at this point. And I'm going to have them at 29-27, which if you're betting the line, which is at 3.5, you would take Houston with the points, but straight up, I'm taking Detroit.
All right, Thaddeus.
Well, most of these games, at least to me, have seemed pretty clear cut, who we think's going to win. But there's always that one game in the week where you're like, oh, what the heck? Where did that come from? My gut is telling me this is going to be the game. Now, I was thinking about this. I'm like, why is my gut telling me? Maybe it's because I hate the Lions. I don't know. I picked the Packers last week. Well, look what happened there. But I don't know. For some reason, I just think the Texans are going to be bounced back because they've been hearing the stories. The Texans' offensive line has not been great. C.J. Stroud's been sacked 30 times already. He was sacked 38 times all of last season. His numbers are way down, and it's just not looking great. Even though they are leading the division, the division has not been very great. So I don't know how comfortable they're going to feel going into the playoffs. Now they are potentially going to get Nico Collins back. He's eligible to return this week. They're still monitoring his hamstring injury. So it's really going to be on Sunday when the decision is going to be made that he's coming back. But I just think my gut's telling me that the Texans are going to win this one. The Texans need a bounce back win. They had a bad loss against the Jets last week. And DeMeco Ryans, I think, is a quality head coach. And I just think he'll be able to manufacture this team a win this week. We've been hearing that the Lions defense has been really great all season. However, they are the third worst defense against the pass, which is what they wanted to fix last year. And it's still not been great. They've allowed the third most pass yards, I believe, to opposing quarterbacks. And CJ Stroud can expose that, I believe. So even if Nico Collins is out, Tank Dell is still a really good option for him. And I think the Texans are going to pull out this win. That Lions offense is still really tough to stop, but I think the Texans will eke out a win 27-24.
Yeah, there is always that game indeed that, can make you look smart, can make you look dumb. But this game, it could be just that. The NFL matchmakers, like I said, props to them because this is a great matchup. I love it, and the Texans could pull out a win, but I have to go with Detroit here with how they've been playing. But it could be a very close matchup indeed. But that's about all we have today, folks. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And one last thing, I told her I'd do this. I wanted to give my mom, Cindy, a shout out, who's a huge Dodgers fan. Congratulations on your Dodgers for winning. It is tough for me to say as a Giants fan, but you guys deserved it. I was happy for you guys, especially with the loss of Fernando Valenzuela. It really cemented a great season for the Dodgers. So once again, congratulations, Mom, on your Dodgers World Series victory. And I hope that's the last one they win ever. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please hit that like, subscribe button. Share these videos, comment. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Love to hear your opinions and your predictions as well. But until next time, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.